I have been studying for several years the effects of video games and now more recently online freely accessible pornography. And there's nothing wrong with playing video games, nothing wrong with watching pornography. In fact, there are some studies that show that a moderate use of video games improves cognitive functioning, hand-eye coordination. I'm focusing on two things: playing video games or watching pornography in excess. And in both cases, it's in social isolation. You're isolated in front of your screen.
But in excess means how much?
Well, it varies. We're talking about 5 hours a day and up. I gave a talk yesterday at Bristol. There was a mother in the audience in tears. Her son plays 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and doesn't think it is a problem. So I'm sounding an alarm that see, video games and pornography are big business. Those are companies that are competing with many other companies for the eyes, hands, brain of young people. And what we see is boys play video games much more than girls, because games and their promotion are designed for guys. They're about violence, they're about aggression and competition. And the same thing with the porn industry. It's designed for young guys and men.
Right, and you're putting those two things together as problem areas if used excessively, both porn and video games, and saying that it has an adverse effect on their manhood, young men's manhood. What do you mean by that?
The adverse effect starts with because you're spending so much time obsessed with your video screen alone in your room. You cut off all social relations. You stop. You cut off friends. You text rather than chat. See, it becomes an addiction. It's not the number of hours a week. It's that an addiction, a psychological addiction is, I would rather be doing this activity than anything else. When I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about it. When I'm in school, I imagine I would rather be playing video games. If I am with a girl, I would rather be watching pornography, because then I can't be rejected. So it's a reduction in academic performance, and we have lots of data in our book, Man Disconnected, about that.
Let me turn to Dr. Andrew Shabilsky. What do you think of the view that Professor Zimbardo is putting forward?
Well, I think the book and Professor Zimbardo are raising some pretty interesting points for consideration. Specifically, our own research shows that young people do encounter a number of risks online, such as pornography or violent video games. But the overwhelming kind of consideration of evidence shows that actually games and social media provide positive experiences for young people.
Even if used to excess?
Well, I think you asked a very careful question here about what is excessive. More than 80% of British young people play some form of video game every day. And in contrast to this view of the isolated male gamer, the one who, lives in his basement, this really doesn't represent the average person who's using the internet or playing video games. Most gamers today in this country are above the age of 30. They're professionals. And believe it or not, a very, very large share of gamers are middle-aged women. There are actually more middle-aged women who play video games online than all under 18s combined. And so really you have to ask yourself, what would lead someone to play an excessive amount of video games? I just want to say the fact of the matter is that, high-quality gold standard research from Nat Sen, indicates that young people today, including boys, they're less violent, they drink less, they use less illicit substances. So marijuana use, even in the last decade, is down 50%.
Professor Zimbardo, are you basing your view perhaps on extreme cases?
No, we're not basing it on extreme cases. I refute that view. There's no question. I mean, in our book, we have tons of evidence that indicate that playing video games in excess affects the brain in fundamental ways. It affects the brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens. It changes behavior in an enormous number of ways. I'm talking about young men. I'm not talking about middle-aged women in England. And we're talking about it's the combination of gaming with pornography, because young men do both. That you play video games for a while, and then you use online pornography, which is available for anybody. We have studies that show children in UK as young as 6 watch pornography now.
Right. And but on the video games point, what would you advise parents then? Ban them or tightly control the time? Because even if you control the time, they're probably still thinking about it the rest of the time.
No, see, it's really critical. The reason I say I'm sounding an alarm, not only in England, it's true in America, it's true in Poland, it's worse in some Asian countries, is that parents typically don't know that that the child is spending as much time as he is, and the second really critical point is to be aware of time. See, the bottom line is, if you're spending a lot of time playing video games, what are all the things you're not doing? You're not socializing, you're not creating, you're a consumer.